48-hour art check, round 57. Here we are again, on our own.
Yes. Yes. We are here.
We are here. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're here. I didn't realize we were
Best intro ever.
We usually have some kind of witty banter at this point. So, viewers, insert witty banter here.
Exactly. So my wife is sick, and so I'm a little delusional because I've been having to do double duty when I get home, yeah. And then I think you're a little delusional because you've finally gotten some sleep, and as a new parent, you might have OD'd on sleep.
Yes, so. There's that, and I spent the weekend, like I turned off all notifications for everything, and if anybody watched my videos, my video that I posted like Sunday night, like that was like my weekend. And it was like a weird cave. There's like nobody in my house. I didn't talk to anybody for like 50 hours or more probably. It was weird. And so there's probably like a little like, oh hey, another person. So I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, that was something.
I love it so much. I wanted to give a little shout out before we get going to Scott Circlin. He did a first comic shop video, which is really cool, based on our topic from a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And then I think we had another viewer, Rodney Hussman, also did one. So you guys should go to the Surfworks Art Labs channel, check out Scott's, and go to Rodney Hussman's to check out. And I hope I'm getting your last name pronounced right, Rodney. But thanks, guys. It was cool to hear. Like, to me, it was just fun to like see on our feed, in the YouTube feed, like some people answering that question, and it's fascinating. So, yeah, if you more of you guys out there following, our ArtCheck, let us know what your first comic shop visit was like, and hashtag it with first comic shop. This is pretty cool.
Yeah,
anyhow,
that's awesome.
Just wanted to mention that.
That's way awesome. I have to plug my phone in real quick, so there'll be one moment. When we get to challenges, I will explain that I haven't drawn anything traditionally in long enough that like my art desk became a giant pile of crap, and it took me like an hour to clean everything up. So I still don't know where everything is because it was. Now it's everywhere else. But anyway, so there's that, and I forgot to plug that in. So I'm good now, though. We're good to go. But yeah, it is cool when people interact and do stuff. I'm gonna go watch those videos. I might have seen. I think I saw Scott's, but I didn't see Rodney's. So I'll have to go find that and check that out. So
yeah, it's cool. Like it's a great topic. So I want to throw it right back to Marshall too. Like Marshall, let us know yours. You asked the question first, man. Let us know.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it.
Okay. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay.
All right. So I basically drew the... I think that might be the wrong...
This is the older image.
I think that's the wrong thumbnail.
One minute. I will switch this out for the new one. Right.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. So anyhow, I basically created a print. Oh, here it is. Haha. I created this print on the left that you're seeing, and that was all based on feedback actually from Marshall, where he was saying he kind of wanted a print of that page, and I was like, actually, that page would make a really good print. So that's available on Society 6, and you can just go to quarterlystories.com to the store section, and you can buy it as a print that's framed or a print that's just regular, postcard, etc. And then I've done rough pencils for the first 3 panels of my page, leaving 3 left to go.
That's awesome. I finished this, so I have 30 characters and backgrounds for... I'm not sure exactly what I'm calling this poster yet, but I got them all done. So you're seeing kind of a slideshow of random nonsensical mashups. I tried to make sure that there wasn't any reason or logic to the mashup. And so there's one or two that I still have to like flesh out, but I got the pose down. And so that's what I did.
That looks awesome.
Thanks.
And like I was saying before, I think all that structural work you're doing is going to make the inking process just go a lot quicker. So that's good. So my challenge was just, like I was sick last time. This is how it works with most families. It started with my son, passed to me. I had to call out sick, and then it got to my wife. And so now I'm having to kind of do double duty. So that's just been challenging, but I've still managed to get my stuff done. So
yeah. Challenges for me, just like, yeah, it was a lot to get done and just staying on task. I actually posted a video that's basically a big, long 15-minute answer to this question, but huge amounts of resistance. Like I wanted to do anything else other than this, and so I actually made a video about staying on task so that I would stay on task. So it worked pretty well. I was at the drawing table for 10 to 12 hours on Saturday, and then maybe not that long, but it was a long time. How about plans?
That's good, though. So my plans are similarly, like I kind of feel like I'm debating resistance and stuff even today. Yeah. So my goal is to hopefully get at least 2 more panels roughly penciled, because I don't want the train to kind of stop. And if I take a day off, that quickly becomes like a week or a month. Right. Because we're fighting a war here, dudes.
Yeah. As far as my plans go, I will be inking one of these characters every day for the month of October, for Inktober. And so that's, I'm going to start there on the left with Abraham Lincoln as Charlie Brown. That's what I'm going to do tonight. And then tomorrow night I'm going to do Punk Rock Storm with the Mohawk as Lilu from Fifth Element. And I'm going to sleep at some point in time in between now and Wednesday several times.
Nice. Sounds good. Especially, yeah, if the kid's out of town for a little bit, you got to get that sleep in.
Right.
Fill up the reserve tanks.
Yeah.
So what did you want to do for a topic?
Do you want to talk about like things like Inktober? I mean, Inktober we could talk about specifically, but like just inking traditionally and challenges in general.
Sure.
Because I was thinking, I wasn't planning on doing Inktober. I was planning on not doing Inktober actually, because I did it a couple of years ago. And I didn't do it last year because I was in the middle of my children's book. And a couple of years ago, I was not very good at inking. And it was super helpful because it kind of just forces you to do stuff. And I'm not the type of person to do simple things because I am a glutton for punishment or a sadist or masochist or whichever one is self-inflicted. Anyway... So I really pushed myself really hard, but it was also one of those things where it was exceptionally difficult to start and finish a drawing every day, and I didn't get any prep done. Anyway, that was before like Sticker Stint and 100 Days of Animation and things like that. But this time around, I've actually, like a lot of my students and my TA and other people have like started to take up challenges like this where you're doing, mermaid, you draw a mermaid every day in the month of May, or take me to your leader Tuesday, where you're drawing a monster on Tuesdays, sticker stints and things like that. And actually my TA said, oh, hey, so what are you going to do for Inktober? Because she's going to get into it. And she started digitally drawing about a year ago, and so she's just getting into like traditional. And she's like, I'm pretty excited because I'm really bad at inking. I've never really done much with it, and so I'm excited to do it. And I said, oh man, I don't have time. Like my natural response was just, I don't have time. But I actually do have time. Like I'm in the middle of projects right now. I'm doing this poster just because I wanted to finish something quickly that was a big project but fun, but not like some 40-page epic that takes me 6 months. And then I realized, actually, I could just do this for Inktober, and it would be great. And so that's where the one character a day came along, is because I could probably do 2 or 3 of these characters every day, but I think spacing it out is well. Let me tell this story, and you tell me what you think. In watching me do the sticker stint, 100 Days of Animation, and other things that I've done that I've gotten from a lot of the community members. Some of them I've invented myself. Some of them I've taken things and kind of mixed them up and changed them to fit. We actually revamped a class that's in the capstone of the emphasis that I teach in to fit some of the things that some of my colleagues have seen me do. They're like, hey, I think that's really valuable. I think our students would get a lot out of it. And so we've been talking about like the pedagogy, the structure of learning, and the value of that as it pertains to these challenges and these type of ongoing things. And one of the things that we made sure is they did, because they were like, let's do like a sticker stint, but they can do anything that they want for 30 days. And I said, as a professional with like decades of experience, the sticker stint almost kicked my butt. It was really hard. And so then they said, okay, well, let's do 24 days or 24 things in 30 days so that they have some leeway, some mulligan days that they can kind of move around or whatever. And we had a lot of really interesting questions from the students that got me thinking about the value of spreading it out. And one of them was, hey, could I just marathon it and do like 24 things in like 3 or 4 days? And as we talked it out, I thought that the value of spreading something out over time, I think there's value in both. I think there's value in these crunch times where you bunker down, is that the thing? Bunker down, hunker down, and kind of just push through and fight through and just do whatever you can to get something done. But I think there's actually a lot of significant value and growth in spacing things out. So if you go, I'm going to spend 30 minutes every day and work on my comic for 100 days straight. What that does is an interesting thing in your brain. When you have restful wakefulness, which is not happening with me right now because I'm not ever restful, but it's when you're bored and you don't fall asleep. That's restful wakefulness from a neurological standpoint. You go into this mode called the default mode network, and the default mode network is where you learn the best things. You learn empathy. Your creativity is significantly increased. Your short-term memory moves into long-term memory. Things are like indelibly marked and written, and carved into your brain in a way that doesn't happen in any other time. And the interesting thing about it is that you have to introduce a problem. And so I feel like spacing these things out and doing them over and over and over again, you begin to train your brain. And we've talked a little bit about this with like when you were doing t-shirt designs all the time, when I was doing the sticker stand or whatever. You train your brain, you introduce a problem, and then you repeatedly call on your brain to deliver solutions to that problem. Instead of like forcing it all out in like 2 or 3 days, if you spread that out over this huge amount of time, your brain will get used to it, and you will consistently be able to output ideas in production. It's kind of an interesting thing. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I just talked for like 7 minutes, but what do you think?
No, I love it. Well, okay, so there's a lot of things, but I'll try to touch on as many as I can. The first thing is like challenges I'm torn about, because I think that I see a lot of artists that I think should be working on projects.
Yeah.
Working on Inktober.
Right.
And it kind of bums me out because it's like they're just kind of doing like sketchbook studies and learning how to ink. And that can be valuable, but they're using like these challenges as almost a way to divert time from the projects. So I always think like, challenges are great if you can utilize those challenges to get to the goal you want to get to. So in your case, like when you were saying, oh, I'm going to do Inktober, I was instantly like a little worried, like, oh no, you're going to distract from your own thing. But realizing you're going to utilize this thing that you need to ink anyway,
right,
for that project, so the project and the challenge can kind of feed each other. I think that's the ideal time to take on a challenge. So like even with the 100 days of making comics, I wouldn't recommend it for somebody who doesn't want to make a comic. Like
Right.
you have to first have that goal and that desire to want to make a comic. Might even be a good idea to have a rough idea of what you want to do, not like fully fleshed out, but at least enough to like give you that juice to keep going. Because the challenge itself, if that becomes the motivating factor, I think you're going to make really shallow work. And that's just my own opinion. But if you have a goal and you're using the challenge to facilitate getting there,
Yeah.
then I think that's when challenges like that, like for instance, it, if you're just somebody who wants to run and then you get in that like a massive marathon, you might find yourself kind of crap out of luck and making really bad time because you didn't prep for it,
Yeah.
But if you're a runner and you want to run a marathon and you go in a marathon, that's when a marathon's at its best and you're not just walking the whole thing,
Yeah.
So that's my take on challenges. I think that pacing things out is really smart for certain personalities. Like for me, what I find if I try to do like 40 illustrations in a day, there's going to be at least 10 of them that I just crapped out because I needed to get them done. And so the reason I've paced out my comic the way I have, and I think pacing out like the piece you're working on in little segments, is it allows you to have the time to engage and really deliver and make it the best thing you can make it. And so otherwise, I think if you try to cram too much too quickly, you can create some good products, but you're like by pacing things out, it can allow you more time to kind of focus and get things nailed. As for what you're saying about like just repeated behavior, building strong habits, that's entirely true too.
Yeah.
And also allowing yourself a little bit of time, especially if you're learning something new. If you try to crunch learning something new and complex into like 10 minutes or something, you might cover as much ground but not have as much retention of the learning because like you were saying,
right,
you're kind of missing out on that key kind of period of rest and weirdly boredom. But anyhow, what I was going to say to kind of cap it off is like I think that when you do challenges like that in the proper way, you do start opening these like pathways in your mind where like years and years into working on my own personal projects and kind of having built pretty strong personal work ethics on like my own projects, I found that I don't get bored. Like boredom is like a luxury.
Yeah.
And that's a really weird thing. So the only times I really get bored is if like I'm trapped in a conversation, like let's say at the grocery store or something,
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I could be working right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, like to me, like conversations like this are useful because it's like it's gearing.
Oh, we might have lost Josh, or he's doing that thing where he's frozen in time. I don't know what's going on. While we're waiting for Josh to come back, if he does, one of the things that I want to say is, oh, you're back. Hey, there you are.
Am I back?
You
All
literally froze like this. It was great.
That's awesome.
But
it's.
I was replying, and I want to say I think I like a lot of what you're saying, and I would interject a little bit of I think we're on the same page. I think challenges, if you have meaning and purpose to it, are super helpful, because I think one of the things that I've watched students do. And I've geared a lot of my classes towards doing this. And I've actually, once I realized that you can kind of manipulate the way that I feel about things through this process, it's super useful. One of the things that people get out of these challenges is there are a ton of people out there that have never finished anything. And some of these challenges aren't that hard. They just seem hard. But they're actually not that hard, and I hesitate to say this, but the 100 days of something, it gets a little draggy at the end, but it's not that hard. Like, you can find half an hour a day to do anything, and sometimes you have to make some sacrifices. And there were definitely days. Now people are going to go back to my 100 days and say, wait, look at this video where you said this is super hard. But I mean, ultimately, like, being able to finish something that you weren't sure whether you're going to finish, that does something to you, because it's like if you are told, hey, you can do anything you want, and all that jazz, that's way different than actually doing something. And so I think there's value in that. And then the other thing is, the way I take on challenges is not just I'm going to do activity X. I try to inject meaning into it, and so that's why when I was in the sticker stint, it wasn't just I illustrated 30 things in 30 days, because that's actually not that hard, right? I could have just sat in my kitchen and drawn different utensils every single day. The difficult part about it was trying to find something that communicated, something that meant something, something that was interesting and engaging. And so I think there are ways to do the challenges that are not terribly helpful.
Yeah.
And several times when I've been like, oh, that looks like so much fun to spend an entire month drawing mermaids, or spend a whole month just inking stuff, and I didn't do it, it was because I had a project of greater value that I was working on to me than that thing. And so go ahead.
That's the thing with art projects, is like you with a project, anytime you're taking it on, you need to make sure that you have passion for it.
Yeah.
Am I freezing?
No, you're good.
I hope not. I'm seeing a little lag here. Anyhow, so Ox mentioned in the chats, he said, I think you can only benefit by drawing daily, especially when you're getting started, if only to get into a rhythm. And I agree. I think you got to build those habits, Are you pretending to freeze?
Yeah, sorry.
I love it. There is like a Dalek with a freeze ray just walking around here. And then there's Ox also said, he said, I think want is pretty soft. You got to need to get your story out there. And I agree. I've seen so many people who kind of want to do comic books, and they'll start something like the 100 Days Challenge, and then quickly you realize, like, there's a big difference between want and work.
Yeah.
And when you work at it, like, it does get to a point where it's gotta be the thing you really need to do.
Yeah.
And that's advice I used to give people when they were beginning illustration, because like, if you want to become a freelance illustrator, like, clients generally don't just come to you. You have to really like want it more than anything, because it means you're probably going to have to work a day job, and you're going to have to send out like query after query to client after client and get shot down over and over again, just waiting for that one opportunity to get paid to do your art.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got out of school, being one of the few, and eventually it became more than the few, but there were a lot of people I went to school with who didn't go anywhere with their art careers, and it had nothing to do with talent or skill. It just had to do with like really like a deep desire to do it. So like, what I'm getting at is like, the challenges I think are great, but when you take on a challenge, make sure you like really want it. Like, you want it. And for me, in order to want something, like, I have to be like super into what I'm doing. So I think like the way that you're gearing October, or the way you went about Sticker Stint, is like kind of the way, it's a good model, like the way to do it. And I think that's really cool that you're teaching that, because that was a tough thing. Like, when I was teaching college, that was a tough thing to get across to students, was the idea of like, hey, when you start, because I tried to leave a lot of themes, like, they'd have a very clear objective, but I try to leave a lot of the content kind of up to them.
Right.
Because I wanted them to pick things they were passionate about. Because, like, if somebody really hates drawing in a specific style, or they don't like like a certain effect that they're trying to achieve, it's really hard to kind of get quality work out of that person. But if the person's at all invested in their work, it transcends execution. It's just something you can kind of tell. And I'm sure you've seen that, where you have like students who like technically nailed it on a project, but you can just tell. Like I remember during critiques, been turning to students and being like, "You really got bored during this, huh? You couldn't care less about this," and they'd be like, "Yeah," like, and it's weird because like by all means, like I shouldn't have been able to tell that because they ticked off all the check boxes,
right?
But it was just, there's something about art that goes beyond just ticking off the check boxes, and so I think that's to kind of a long-winded way of me saying I completely agree with you. I think that's cool that you're implementing that in the classroom and in challenges yourself. And I think anyone out there who's thinking about like, before you take on Inktober, like is Inktober a form of resistance or is it going to further you on your project? I think in your case, it's going to get you done with this crazy project. It might even actually help pace it out and get it done the way you want to get it done.
Yeah.
But I think for some people, Inktober might be the last thing they need to do.
I agree, and I will say this about shorter challenges though. 100 days isn't that short, but these challenges that you're not getting into like well, I'll say it this way. This is a better way of saying it, and I promise I will finish a sentence at some point in time. When I set out to learn how to draw, I decided that I was going to do a comic. The first comic that I decided to do turned out to be like a 400-page epic, like every beginner who starts to do a comic, you want to do like this crazy thing. And it took me like 18 months to do 60 pages. And I did learn how to draw. But it is unlikely in the next couple years that I will be able to finish that project because I'm significantly better now, both as a writer and storyteller and as an illustrator. So I'm going to have to start over from scratch. I still think it's a great story. But having said that, when I wanted to learn how to animate, I really did want to learn how to animate. And I said, I'm going to do the 100 Days of Animation. And so I took what Kevin Cross did with 100 Days of Making Comics. And because, like you're saying, I had the desire for it, I actually learned a fairly complicated program inside and out in a very short period of time. And I will say the same for inking. Yeah. I think I've learned a lot about inking since I did the Inktober for the first time a couple years ago. But it was like a huge watershed leveling up for me because when you're not good at something, you tend to take longer to learn it unless you're like, all right, no matter what, I've got to finish a drawing every day. And some of those ones that I did, I'm still pretty proud of them. They were exceptionally detailed, and I learned a ton of techniques. And so I do think there is a time and place. And I'm not saying that you're not saying the same thing. And so if I'm saying that your desire can be a project, it can be a story, it can be whatever. But if your desire is, I want to completely level up and I'm going to push myself super hard and I'm going to use this challenge to do that, it is a really good way to learn something and a really good way to level up your skills.
And hold yourself publicly accountable to actually trying to achieve something, which is a good habit to build.
Right.
Holly in the chats said Inktober is pretty much only being a negative. So she draws stuff, promotes her comics with no fan art. So like basically she's trying to kind of hedge it and use it to kind of promote her own books, which is, once again, maybe that'll be the motivation that makes you make quality work during the Inktober.
Yeah.
And then Ox is saying he's using it to kind of practice. It sounds like practice looking. I'll just quote him, but mirroring great inkers for 6 days, applying their style and lessons for a piece on the 7th day for his own comics, which I think is really cool. So
yeah.
So that's another thing. Like you could do, one day where you're like, I really like, the way that Albrecht Dürer does his clouds, and so you could like ink Albrecht Dürer clouds, and then the next day you could be like, I really like the way that you know, Dave McKeon uses like a dip quill, you know, and like has these like splatters and stuff, like, you know, I think you could learn a lot from looking at different inkers and different artists and kind of trying different skills and stuff.
Yeah.
So
and those
I agree.
Those are two really good examples of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Ox is kind
different
of
approaches.
Right. Ox is taking this thing and saying, I'd like to level up my inking skills, so he's going for like a learning situation. And then Holly's doing something that we haven't mentioned yet that I think is actually important as well. You know, like Holly's got several projects that she's working on. She's got her own YouTube channel. She's got her own following. And if you haven't checked her out, or Ox, go check those guys out. But she's using it to continue to build an audience and to drive traffic to the projects that she wants to drive traffic to. And that's another benefit of some of the more popular contests is there are people that just kind of scroll through and hang out with those hashtags. And who's to say that, you know, Holly doesn't get, you know, another couple hundred people that are just have no idea who she is and start scrolling through this hashtag and see this dude with big hair and they're like, what's that about? And then they find, you know, the comic that she's working on, and she's got a fan, and then, you know, so there is a lot of that, especially on the different social media channels where people want to follow the type of work that you're doing, but they don't know you exist, and so this type of thing creates an opportunity for them to find you. And it's not like you're convincing anybody to like your work. They would have liked it if they knew it existed, but they may never. They may never have found you if you didn't do 100 Days of Comics, 100 Days of Animation, Sticker Stent, Inktober, Mermaid, Take Me to Your Leader, whatever. Like any of those type of things where people are like, "Oh, this is rad. What's going on over here?" And then they find a bunch of artists that they like.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Holly even pointed out. She said Jake Parker does it with Skyheart, and she said she'd say he's pretty successful, which I think we'd all agree with. So, like, so I think we're pretty much in agreement that like challenges can be really beneficial, that it's good to, if you're going to go into a challenge, make sure it's going to be something you care about and kind of, you know, go all in on. Yeah. And will be worth your while and won't be an excuse. Because like that's another thing, you know, the only main point I was kind of getting at is when you're working on something like what I'm working on, a graphic novel that's really long, sometimes like if I were to take a challenge like that, it might be actually just my way of cheating myself from getting to the finish line on my comic.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And so
look,
that,
I'm being productive. I'm not finishing the thing, but I'm totally being productive.
Exactly. And I've had friends and myself get stuck in the productivity loop where you're fooling yourself that you're being productive, but in the meantime, like these big projects are just sitting dead. And so that's something I'm always cautious of. And I always, you know, I think if you're just starting out or like I said, if you can kind of work it into your project, or like Holly was mentioning, or Ox was mentioning, like those are all really good examples of challenges and stuff like that. So anyhow, we should probably wrap it, but I do want to mention at the end, like I really am curious, like it was so fun to see the two so far people who've told us kind of their first comic shop experience, and I am really kind of curious to see that. So if you guys want, please just mention them in the chats or in the comments, or just you know, make your own YouTube video if it's too long. And what was the hashtag? I'm forgetting already.
I can't remember. I remember Scott mentioning it in his video. We'll go back and review that and put the hashtag in the description of this video when it goes, and you can watch it later. Because I can't. It was like hashtag my first shop or my first comic shop.
Hashtag first comic shop. That's it. Hashtag first comic shop.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting. I would also like in the chat if you guys are doing challenges or have done challenges, and why you do those, and if you find them valuable or if you find them distracting. I'm interested in. I'm interested to kind of see where everybody comes down on this issue. So yeah, any closing thoughts?
No, I think that'll about do it. Thanks to everybody who's joined us in the chats. It's always fun to have like our little community and hear from you guys. And I guess we will see you in a couple days.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna plug this. If you want to see me draw random crap that makes no sense after we've just spent over 30 minutes talking about injecting meaning into everything, and I'm intentionally making something that doesn't have any meaning at all, then follow me on YouTube, and I'll be posting the daily drawings on Instagram as well, and I'll probably be whining about it on Twitter. But if you want to see Optimus Prime as Evangelion Unit 01 or Popeye as Conan the Barbarian, or tonight, after this, if I ever shut up and turn this video off, I'm going to finish Abraham Lincoln as Charlie Brown. So check those out. And if you want to check out Josh's stuff, go to quarterlystories.com. And you can see that print, I believe, is available at your store somewhere. Where can they get that print?
Yeah. Just Quarterly Stories, and you just click on store, and you'll see it right there. So.
Okay, so go buy that print because it's awesome. I already talked about my stuff, and special thanks to No Saboteurs for the intro music. You can check them out on Facebook, and we'll catch you guys in a couple days.